There he stood in the narrow hallway, his chest bare, wearing only those dark blue mesh shorts that hung loose and damp on his frame. I hadn't even reached the temperature control yet. To this day, I can't say whose hand moved first, but as I walked past him, something inside me just stopped. His arm grazed mine, and heaven help me, I turned to face him. He stayed perfectly still when I placed my palm against his chest. Not a word escaped his lips when I moved closer. There was this electric moment, just our breathing and the air conditioner humming to life behind us, while that old hallway bulb cast its weak yellow glow above. I kissed him without thinking twice, lips parted, and he responded instantly. I can still feel the smoothness of his skin, youthful yet solid, warm and flushed from his recent shower. Water droplets still clung to his neck. I pressed my face there, breathing him in. I think I murmured something, the words are lost to me now. We never made it to a bedroom. We didn't need privacy. His shoulders hit the wall, and I melted into him like I wasn't wearing a wedding band. Like I wasn't meant to be someone's stepmother, someone's devoted wife, like he wasn't supposed to be our house guest. That flickering bulb above kept making its broken electrical sound, the same yellow light that always acts up when the cooling system starts. I don't understand why that detail stuck with me most. I believed I understood my limits until he crossed them. My name is Riina. I'm 41 years old. I spend my days working part-time at a dentist's office. I've been married for 12 years. I never had children of my own. Just Miles, my husband's son from his previous relationship, who's 20 now and away at college. I didn't raise him from childhood, but I've been around long enough that I should have known right from wrong. That evening, only three of us occupied the house. Miles, his friend Cal, and myself. My husband was traveling for business in Phoenix. The young men had returned from their community college baseball season and planned to stay through the weekend. Cal walked with a slight limp from some ankle injury. That's all I really knew about him. He was reserved, well-mannered, and wore cologne that lingered in our hallways. I had no intention of speaking with him. I had no plan at all. I simply came out wearing my bathrobe to fix the temperature settings. Our heating and cooling system acts strange when the air gets thick with moisture, and it had poured rain that afternoon. I was walking barefoot, no undergarments. The robe wasn't properly secured. He must have just stepped out of the upstairs guest shower. Still dripping wet, still radiating heat. His hair was completely disheveled. He made no attempt to cover himself. He looked directly into my eyes like my appearance didn't surprise him at all. Like this meeting wasn't by chance. I lingered there far too long. What would you have done if the one person you were meant to protect, simply by being the responsible adult present, was the same person your body suddenly craved without any warning? Because I realized the instant he stepped nearer, I wouldn't resist what was coming. I didn't even want to resist. We stayed silent throughout, until I pulled back, breathing hard, perspiration cooling quickly beneath the robe. I stumbled backward into the temperature control like it had some connection to why I was standing there. I should go check on Miles, I managed to say. The words sounded like they came from someone else entirely. He gave no response, just continued staring like he understood something about me that I hadn't yet discovered. I climbed the stairs, closed the master bedroom door behind me, turned the lock, and collapsed onto the bed like I'd been shoved. That hallway light remained burned into my thoughts for hours afterward. The way it flickered right as our lips met. I kept hearing it in the quiet, that electrical buzz, that faint clicking sound when the cooling unit struggles to start. I used to believe infidelity required planning. Hidden messages, slow build-ups, growing romantic feelings. But this contained none of those elements. It simply occurred. And the most troubling part, I didn't flinch or tremble. My hands remained rock steady. Like this behavior wasn't foreign to me, like something deep inside had always understood how to cross that forbidden line if the opportunity ever presented itself. I have no idea if he'll confide in Miles, if he'll pretend nothing happened, if I should pretend nothing happened. I lay awake that entire night beside the soft glow of the humidifier, trying to picture what type of woman acts this way. Then I stopped pretending it wasn't exactly who I am. Some secrets don't shout loudly, they whisper constantly, relentlessly. If yours continues to haunt you, you're not walking this path alone. Hit that like button and subscribe. Someone else out there desperately needs this honest truth too. Sleep never came. I just remained motionless, staring at nothing, waiting for daylight to provide some kind of shield to hide behind. At 7:13 in the morning, I rose, brushed my teeth in the guest bathroom instead of our master's suite. Then I stood in the kitchen barefoot, same robe, pretending to study the shopping list stuck to the refrigerator door. I skipped making coffee. I couldn't risk my hands shaking and giving me away. That hallway light remained on, the same weak yellow bulb. I had forgotten to switch it off. I found myself staring at it again, too long. A wooden board groaned behind me. I didn't turn around. It was Miles, shirtless, messy-haired, stretching his arms. "You feeling all right, Ren?" he said through a yawn. "You're awake pretty early." I nodded quickly. Yeah, the temperature thing was acting weird. I couldn't meet his gaze. I was terrified he might see the truth written on my face. He poured cereal into a bowl, settled at the kitchen island, and started scrolling through his phone like it was just another ordinary Saturday morning. Like the woman standing beside him hadn't been kissing his friend against our wall just 6 hours before. Cal didn't appear right away. I dreaded the sound of his footsteps. I pictured his descent 100 different ways. That casual boy swaggered down the stairs, shirtless again perhaps, maybe different shorts, maybe identical ones. I couldn't decide which scenario would be more unbearable. When he finally came down at 8:02 in the morning, he wore a t-shirt. He avoided eye contact completely, just grabbed a protein bar from our pantry and said, "Morning," like absolutely nothing had changed. Miles chatted about some documentary he'd watched the night before. I nodded at appropriate moments. My body occupied the room, but my stomach felt like it was floating somewhere else entirely. I couldn't feel my arms properly. I couldn't remember if I'd tied my robe securely enough. I wiped down the counter twice in a row. Nothing was spilled there. I just needed something to occupy my restless hands. If I behave normally, does that erase what happened? That question repeated endlessly in my mind. I had only encountered Cal twice previously. The first time was during spring break when he joined us for dinner, lasagna and wine. Pleasant conversation. He had gentle eyes that seemed somewhat guarded. The kind of young man who appeared older when he wasn't smiling. The second time, he helped Miles transport some storage containers to our garage. I thanked him and offered iced tea to both boys. He claimed mine tasted better than his mother's recipe. I blushed like a complete fool. That was it. Nothing more. No lingering glances, no flirtation, nothing that could explain last night's events, which somehow makes it even worse because there's no narrative I can construct where it builds gradually, where it simmers over time, where it makes any logical sense. It was sudden and unexpected, and I offered zero resistance. The remainder of that day passed quietly. Miles left to meet friends somewhere. Cal stayed behind, claiming he had schoolwork to complete. I retreated to the laundry room, folding clothes that didn't require folding. I refolded the same towel 3 separate times, hung it back on the same hook where it always drooped at an odd angle. At some point, I glimpsed Cal walking past the laundry room doorway. He didn't glance inside, but I noticed how his hand skimmed along the edge of the wall as he moved. That exact same wall where I had pressed him against myself, the identical spot my palm had touched hours earlier. My robe was spinning in the washing machine by then. I had changed into jeans and a faded college sweatshirt. No makeup, hair pulled back with a clip. I felt simultaneously invisible and completely exposed. That evening, I prepared spaghetti for dinner. The boys were laughing and joking, tossing pieces of garlic bread at each other like nothing unusual had occurred. I smiled when expected. I poured myself just one glass of wine. I never finished it. When Cal reached for the cheese shaker, his fingers grazed mine. I jerked my hand away immediately. Miles remained oblivious. That night, I stared at the hallway light once more. I deliberately left it burning. I told myself it was to make the house feel lived in, like someone might come downstairs for a glass of water. But I suspect the real reason was much darker. I wanted that light illuminated so I could remember exactly what I had done. Or perhaps so I couldn't pretend I hadn't done it. Miles asked me to drive Cal to his physical therapy appointment. Said his car was having problems and he couldn't miss campus because of a group assignment deadline. It was a flimsy excuse, but I didn't argue. I simply nodded and grabbed the car keys. I convinced myself it was perfectly fine, that I was just being polite, that I could return to normal behavior. It was Tuesday, overcast, that strange spring weather where you're warm in sunshine but freezing in shadows. I wore a light gray cardigan over a tank top with jeans. Nothing provocative whatsoever. No lipstick, just enough concealer to hide the exhaustion under my eyes. When Cal slid into the passenger seat, he smelled like fresh laundry. Not cologne or body spray, just that clean scent you get from sheets straight from the dryer. He barely spoke, just murmured thanks again and fastened his seat belt. We pulled out of our driveway in complete silence. The radio stayed off. The engine made that gentle humming sound you only notice when nobody's filling the emptiness with conversation. 5 minutes into the drive, I realized my fingers were gripping the steering wheel like it was anchoring me to reality. He shifted position, bending one leg while the other foot tapped softly against the floor mat. I glanced sideways at the exact moment he turned his head toward me. Our eyes met and held. He didn't look away first. Neither did I. I should have broken that connection. I should have mentioned school, or the weather, or how Miles was doing in his classes, but instead I remained silent. I just stared for half a second longer than appropriate before focusing back on the road ahead. The air flowing through the vents felt too cold. I adjusted the dial to a lower setting. Sorry, I mumbled. The front seats always get weird airflow. He said nothing in response, just watched me drive like he was still back in our hallway that first night. At the next red light, I sensed his knee shift again. It barely touched mine, but he didn't pull away, and neither did I. That single point of contact made my entire body tingle with electricity. It didn't feel romantic or sweet. It felt like being completely naked, like standing before a mirror without clothes and wondering if anyone else can see the broken parts of who you really are. We arrived at the clinic parking lot. It was crowded with cars. I dropped him at the entrance and said I'd circle around so he wouldn't have to wait in the rain afterward. He nodded his understanding. That should have been the end of our interaction. But when I returned to pick him up, he opened the passenger door and hesitated, one hand gripping the car roof, the other clutching the door frame. Water dripped from his jacket sleeve. He settled into the seat slowly, hair damp from the weather. "Did you have to wait long?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, I was watching for your car." The way he said those words, like they carried hidden meaning beyond just a ride home, I kept my eyes fixed on the road again, but something in my chest was fluttering like that cursed hallway light. I wasn't sure if you were going to look at me again, he said quietly. His voice was low and careful. My grip tightened around the steering wheel. I shouldn't have looked the first time, I said, but you didn't stop what happened. I know. Silence filled the space between us. We pulled into our driveway and sat there motionless. Engine still running, rain speckling the windshield. Neither of us made any move to get out. I reached toward the ignition key, but my hand froze halfway there. I'm not that kind of person, I whispered. Cal exhaled sharply through his nose, almost like laughter, but not quite. Maybe you are, you just never knew it before. Those words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they rang with truth. I turned to face him directly. Is this some kind of game to you? He shook his head firmly. No, but I think you wanted something to happen, even if it was just to feel desired again. That was the moment I should have ordered him out of the car, told him to leave, and never return to our house. But instead I said, don't talk like you understand me. He leaned slightly closer. I don't understand you, but I think you want me to try. His hand moved just barely in my direction. He didn't actually touch me, but the intention was clear enough. My breath caught in my throat. The cold air from the vent blew across us again. I turned off the engine completely, got out without another word. Just walked straight into the house, leaving the door unlocked behind me. He followed a minute later, not immediately, just long enough to make it seem casual. But I knew the invisible line had faded even more. And the most terrifying part was that I wasn't sure I wanted to redraw it anywhere. It happened again 2 days later. Miles was at the fitness center. He'd sent a text saying he might stay late to use the sauna afterward. I was folding towels in the laundry room, sitting on the bench with one leg tucked underneath me, listening to the dryer make its usual humming sound when the belt gets loose. I never bothered getting it repaired. Cal had been out in the garage, supposedly using the weight equipment. The metallic clanking had stopped about 20 minutes earlier. I didn't go check on him. When I heard his footsteps approaching down the hallway, something in my entire body went rigid. I could hear the wooden boards creaking under his weight. The rhythm was slow and deliberate, not casual at all. He didn't announce himself when he pushed open the laundry room door, just stood there with one hand still on the doorknob. The door clicked softly behind him, not completely closed, just not open either. I didn't turn around immediately. I kept folding a towel that was already perfectly folded. I have no idea what I thought I was accomplishing. I felt him move closer behind me, near enough to feel his presence but not actually touching. You left the light on again, he said quietly. It took me a moment to realize he meant the hallway light, that yellow one. I know, I replied. You always do. I finally turned around. The pile of towels shifted slightly in my lap. He was damp with perspiration again, his forearms glistening like he'd wiped sweat away with his shirt. His hair stuck slightly to his forehead. That clean detergent smell again, mixed with something more human underneath. I felt it hit my chest like heat, then drop straight down through my body. I stared at him far too long. He reached out and touched the edge of my sleeve, just enough contact to feel the fabric. His fingers remained there. I keep thinking about that night, he said softly. My mouth felt completely dry. I swallowed hard and said nothing in response. I don't think you're actually sorry it happened. I am sorry. Then why didn't you stop me just now? My eyes dropped to where his hand still hovered near my arm. He wasn't touching skin directly, just fabric, just enough contact to make everything worse. I don't know how to undo what we did, I said weakly. He stepped forward. My knees bumped against the edge of the bench. I don't think you want to undo it. When his hand slipped under the hem of my shirt, all the air left my lungs at once. I didn't resist. I let his hands pull me upward, let my back press against the washing machine, let the pile of towels drop to the floor. They made a soft thudding sound that somehow seemed too loud in the small space. The dryer door felt warm against the backs of my legs. He kissed me with complete intensity, desperate and urgent, not gentle this time. My hands went straight to his hair without conscious thought. His skin was hot and damp, like he'd just come in from bright sunlight. I felt the machine vibrating behind me, the steady rhythm of the wash cycle pulsing into my spine. It mixed with the rhythm of his breathing, the pressure of his hands on my body. We didn't speak at all during, not until it was over. The only sounds were the dryer running, the soft thumping of clothes tumbling inside, the air vent wheezing just above our heads, and my own breath catching in my throat over and over again. He kissed my collarbone tenderly. I pulled him even closer to me. When it ended, he leaned against me heavily, forehead resting on my shoulder. I felt the full weight of him, young, strong, but uncertain. But I didn't offer comfort to him. I didn't comfort myself either. My shirt was wrinkled and twisted, my jeans half unzipped. I fixed nothing at all. I should probably go, he whispered against my skin. I nodded, still staring at the back wall of the room. When he left, the door didn't latch properly. It stayed partially open, with that hallway light still pouring through the gap. I bent down and gathered up the towels, folding them all over again. Not to clean up, just to pretend my hands had been doing something innocent and normal. Later, I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the refrigerator, holding a cold can of ginger ale that I never opened. My hands were finally shaking now. The house felt too quiet around me. The only sound I could hear was that hallway light buzzing like a reminder or a warning that I had completely ignored. The ginger ale can was still sitting on the kitchen floor when morning came. I stepped over it twice before finally bending down to throw it in the trash. My back cracked when I straightened up. I hadn't slept properly. I hadn't slept at all, really. Miles had already gone early for some group project meeting. His note was still on the counter, written in blue pen on the back of a Chinese takeout receipt. Back before lunch. Cal might still be here. Love you, M. I read it 3 times in a row. That little heart at the end burned worse than anything Cal had ever said to me. I opened the refrigerator door and stared inside like I planned to cook something. I didn't. Cal wandered into the kitchen around 9 o'clock. Not hurried, not cautious, just there. He poured himself some orange juice and leaned against the kitchen island, shirtless once again. I actually flinched at the sight. You feeling okay? He asked calmly. I nodded quickly. Why wouldn't I be? He shrugged, eyes scanning over me, not in a sexual way, just curious, like he wanted to see if I was going to completely fall apart. I didn't sleep last night, I admitted. He took a sip of juice. Me neither. I sat down on one of the stools, fingers rubbing at an imaginary spot on the countertop, like there was something sticky there. There wasn't anything. Are you going to pretend this never happened? I asked quietly. No, he said calmly. Are you? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He didn't answer immediately, then said quietly, neither do I. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything else we'd shared. I kept hearing the soft electrical buzz of that hallway bulb, even from the kitchen. That cursed light that never shuts off unless you manually flip the switch. Nobody ever does that. Later that same day, I found myself back in the laundry room again. Not because I had work to do there, just because I didn't know where else to go in the house. I sat on the bench and stared at the washing machine lid. My palms pressed flat against the warm metal surface, remembering exactly how it had felt against my back. I hated myself for remembering those details. That evening, we all ate dinner like nothing was wrong between us. Chicken with green beans, Miles did most of the talking as usual. Cal joked around with him, laughed too easily at everything. I couldn't keep up with their conversation. I kept checking whether my shirt was buttoned too high or not high enough. Afterward, I discovered Cal standing in the hallway with his arms crossed, just staring up at that flickering light. "I hate that thing," he said. "It's too loud and annoying." "You could turn it off," I suggested. He looked over at me meaningfully. "You never do." That was all he said. He walked away after that, back toward the guest room. I stood there for a full minute before reaching toward the light switch, but I didn't actually touch it. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual. Miles stayed in the living room watching some movie. I closed the bedroom door, changed into pajama pants and an old sweatshirt, and sat on the edge of our bed with the lamp turned on. I kept seeing Cal's eyes in my mind, not the way they looked during our encounters, but afterward. He hadn't seemed ashamed or guilty, just still and waiting, like he was curious to see what kind of person I'd become now, like he already knew the answer. I curled up under the blanket but didn't turn the lamp off. I lay there blinking into the soft yellow glow, trying to remember who I used to be 2 weeks ago. Before the thermostat incident, before the bathrobe, before I kissed a young man I had no right to desire. I heard the guest room door creak open sometime after midnight. Then came the sound of someone filling a glass in the kitchen, the refrigerator opening and closing, the water filter clicking back into place. I didn't move from bed. I didn't go investigate, but I listened carefully to every sound. And the most troubling part is that I don't know if I want this to stop happening or if I just want to stop hating myself for not wanting it to stop.